Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you're in a safe place with this wet weather and traffic I experienced on the way over here. I'm so excited about this conversation we're about to have with Ms. Trish DeBerry here, running for Commissioner Precinct 3. Very, very important election time. Very, very important when you consider the large budget that the county has right now and all the things that are going on nationwide. Let me tell you, I gravitated to Trish and become very good friends during my race for sheriff, because a lot of the things we said, we echoed each other, not knowing and not planning it, but we talked about public safety. And both of us understand, and Trish especially, understands that public safety is so critical in our community. Without public safety, if you look at those zip codes with high crimes, there's no economic development, there's no workforce, you have high school dropouts, a high percentage of teen pregnancy. So we understand that. And also, we have in common is being small business owners. So Trish understands the value of a dollar. She's fiscally conservative, which is very important. And so we're going to jump into this conversation. We have quite a bit of questions, so understand. I know a lot of y'all think questions. We're going to get to a few. We only have 30 minutes. And then later on, we'll follow up with those responses, those that we don't get a chance to get to. But I want Trish to start jumping into this, because this is what this is about, is learning and understanding more about Ms. Berry and understanding her ideology and what she wants to do for the county.
Well, thanks for the opportunity
Absolutely,
to be here, Willie.
it's exciting.
It's always a good day when I'm with Willie. And by the way, this gentleman's career is not over when it comes to elected office. I was very disappointed, obviously, when he didn't make it through, but he's going to stick with it. And I know that there will be other opportunities associated with Willie. So, yeah, I think one of the major things that we wanted to talk about today is really a lot of the conversation, considering your background, about police protection and law enforcement. And you know, it's been something that's been echoed on the campaign trail, and really when I've been at the doorstep, people want to know, especially in neighborhoods, you're not going to defund the police. So let me make that very clear. We are not defunding the police. You know, we have mental health issues and we have mental health problems, and we've got to deal with those. And really, even as a country, not even the county, but as a country, we've not done a good enough job addressing mental health issues, especially with our veterans.
Right.
And that's going to be really, really important to me, because the county has a lot of purview over mental health and veterans affairs issues. So we're going to delve into that, but that has nothing to do with the police and police protection. So I want to make sure that people on the call have been very blessed to have the support of the San Antonio Police Officers Association, the Deputy Sheriff's Association. And so, if anything, we've got to beef up that police presence. You know, to your point, Willie, you know, economic development is dependent upon a safe community. San Antonio Police have cut safe officers over the years, and very, very popular program in the neighborhoods.
Right.
You know, constables have kind of stepped in to fill that role, which has been really important. But we've got to keep our eye on the ball when it comes to that, because, you know, we had National Thank a Police Officer Day on Saturday.
Right.
So I made sure, you know, every time I go into Black Ruffle Coffee or, in the grocery store or wherever, we need to be sure that we're thanking the police officers for the job that they do day in, day out. Because I think, you know, to a large extent, regarding the racial tensions that have escalated, they felt very undervalued.
Right.
But we want to make sure, you know, police officers, deputy sheriffs, constables that are out there, you are important.
You know, and a lot of the questions, Trish, had to do with public safety. And actually one of the questions was, and I'll jump into that since we're on that topic right now, and one of the persons asked was, actually several asked similar questions. So I'll kind of just combine them, but they were wanting to know, instead of defunding the police, how do you feel about actually giving them more funding for better training? Because some of them are concerned with the lack of training that they're receiving out there in the streets.
Oh, absolutely. We've got to take a look at what they're equipped with to be able to handle in any given situation that they encounter. And it could be, whether it's a domestic violence issue, whether it's a mental health issue, they have to be prepared. And a lot of that comes through training. It's not necessarily responding with violence. It's responding with, hey, train me on how I encounter a certain situation, and let's role model a little bit in that training to see what would be the best protocol associated with that situation. But yeah, I mean, training is really critically important. And I've had conversations even, with the constable's offices about training. And we've got to have more funding associated with that. Because the other thing is too, we want to pull and we want to increase the pay associated likely with deputy sheriffs. We're going to get a better quality candidate that comes into the program if we're offering better pay for the county. But not only that, if we're offering them better training associated with that. So yes, training is, like I said, will be a big priority for me, because it's not just the gun and the holster that you're equipped with. It's what you have up here,
Right.
and the mental training that you have to be prepared for any given situation.
And you understand that, you and I being business owners, we understand that for our employees, if we don't give them proper training, then
Yes.
how can we expect the performance out of them to our
Right.
customers? So the way I always do it, and I'm sure you do the same, is you give the best possible training to your staff, so that way you know that if they're not doing it, then it's a behavior issue,
Yeah,
not a
right.
training issue.
Right.
And so I think that is why I really believe that you're best for this position, because you can do that. You can take your business knowledge and experience and wisdom and apply it to being the elected official.
Well, and I think there are obviously some things we can borrow from the corporate sector. We operate really with a continuous improvement training, model. What does continuous improvement look like? I mean, nobody's perfect, and things change and situations change. There are different priorities that come up, but if we're not training people on a regular basis for what they are encountering, or the changes, even from a small business perspective, just the changes in the workplace.
Right.
If I look at what's happened in my business regarding the PR and marketing field, it used to be very traditional. Now, as you know, even on the campaign that we're employing, we're doing a lot of social digital advertising.
Right.
So that was something that turned the industry on its ear. If we had not embraced that, if we had not trained people for the revolution that was coming with social and digital, we would have been left behind. So you're right. That is analogous to what's happening with the police department. They're just not getting the kind of training that they deserve.
I agree. I've seen it. I've seen, being in law enforcement for over 27 years, I've seen the training change. And I think that some of the changes are not beneficial to law enforcement and to the community. Because again, safety is what you want to focus on, public safety.
Yes.
And sometimes you got to remove politics from public safety. And I think you've even mentioned that, that politics should not be, politics should not be involving public safety.
Yes.
It needs to be separate.
Yeah.
You got to separate the two.
You do. Well, and for the folks in Precinct 3, those of you that are watching that are a part of Precinct 3, it's a very, very large precinct. It's 526,000 people approximately, give or take. That's the size of a congressional district.
Right.
So when you talk about having to service all of those neighborhoods, people are very concerned about response times. And so we can't be taking more officers off the street when the precinct continues to grow by leaps and bounds on a monthly basis. We looked at stats regarding the housing market. It's still a very hot housing market, despite the fact we're enduring a global pandemic, because people still want to move to San Antonio. They understand at some point, hopefully sooner versus later, there will be a vaccine and we will start to move forward and we'll start to recover. But this is a community that's only going to continue to grow and prosper. And we've got to have police that are on the streets, because if you call and pick up the phone, you want a police officer or a firefighter at your door.
Right.
Lickety split, right? And they can't say, well, I was all the way over here because we didn't really have enough officers to patrol that certain area, or we had to beg, borrow, and steal to be able to get the kind of coverage that we needed. No, it has to be a priority.
I agree, 100%.
Yes.
So one of the things I noticed that, I actually experienced when I wasn't elected, I was actually appointed a position with the county. I remember a lot of people felt that because I was a small business owner, it was a conflict. And I just refused to shut my business down. And now you're 180 people don't have a job. And I had really top notch, and I still do, a command staff within my organization, my company. So when I was with the county, I just passed responsibility on over to my staff, and they handle things. Now, after hours, if they had a question, I addressed it. Are you experiencing any questions like that? Because you're a business owner and you're not there yet, but you're running for a position. Are they asking you questions regarding your business?
It doesn't come up all that often, because I think the people of the precinct really want a working, a gainfully employed county commissioner, somebody who's still creating jobs for people and knows what it's like to operate a small business. But yeah, I mean, I think, my opponent has certainly made some couched innuendos about the fact that I should give up my business. And I would tell you, no, that's not going to happen. There's something called in business, when you have private sector experience, there's a succession plan. Meaning I have people that have worked for me for 15 or 20 years that are more than happy to step up and run the day-to-day operation associated with the company. And they're looking forward to the opportunity, because that's what you do, right? You manage up for people.
That's right.
Given the opportunity, they step into it, they fulfill that role. So I've been doing that for years, even with the volunteer work that I've done within the community, because I've been very, very passionate about a number of things, whether that's anti-cyberbullying legislation with David's Legacy and David's Law, and spent a lot of time, a lot of pro bono time working on that because I thought it was that important. That didn't mean that the business shut down when I was doing that kind of work, or if I was up in Austin in the legislature. It meant that I had people that were willing and able to be able to keep the wheels rolling on the track. And that's exactly what's going to happen. I have, I think the reputation I have in the community is somebody who's got a very deep, very hard work ethic. And so I've been a single mom for a number of years, raising 2 teenagers and given 100% to them, and 100% to my job and 100% to community service. And really, that's what I feel like this is. It's an opportunity to step into a role regarding community service and do some good in this community. And really, most importantly, Willie, I will tell you, the downturn, in an economic time that we're facing unlike any other, you want somebody who's got a pragmatic business skill set in that office. You know as well as I do. There was another business that I had, and 9/11 hit, and we didn't know what was going to happen. And certainly we had, some downturn in the economy there. We survived. What do? You scrub budgets, you shrink, you contract, you cut all discretionary spending associated with that, and you hunker down. But you do the job, and because you've done such a great job, clients will stay with you.
Right.
Much like in 2009 and 2010, when we had the real estate issues associated with speculative lending in the housing market. There was a downturn. There again, you scrub budgets again or whatever, you look at, contracting somewhat, but you hang on and you make smart decisions regarding where you're actually going to prioritize and where you're going to spend that money. But I think having done that makes me, a very qualified candidate, especially during this time, now more than ever.
Right. It's to be a business owner. You, again, as I mentioned earlier, you understand the value of the dollars. It forces you, whether you like it or not, to be fiscally conservative.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a bucket of money you can pull from and raise taxes to cover. So if you're not conservative with your fundings and your income coming in, then people don't get paid.
Right.
People don't lose their jobs. And I think that with your track history, and as long as you've owned your business and how successful, it proves that.
Yeah.
You know what you're doing. And as you mentioned, you need to trim the fat. You know exactly how to do that.
Exactly. Well, and you struggle with overhead all the time. Do we add one more employee? What is the overhead that comes with bringing on one more employee? Do we expand the office? And what does the overhead equation look like? And so as a small business owner, you're making difficult decisions every single day. And so I would tell you, I think you want a working commissioner who has a business and who owns a business, and not necessarily just somebody who is going to be a career professional politician, because I think we've seen that happen far too often.
Right.
People get into the office, they have nothing else to do, and they start gaming the system, right? We've seen that. People are, game it, and they're there 40 and 50 years. That's the other thing I want to work on is term limits for county commissioners, because currently we have no term limits. So I think it's a recipe for fraud and disaster to have somebody in the office that wants to be a professional politician.
Right. You're doing this not because you need to in terms of making a living. You're doing this because you really want to, because you care about the community. And I think that speaks volumes also, and that separates yourself from all the other candidates and everyone else that's on that board, that you don't have to do this.
No, you're right. Yeah. In fact, majority of my money goes to the IRS anyway, so I will continue to in all likelihood. So I'm really, in essence, taking a pay cut to be able to do this. But, born and raised in this community, grew up in Precinct 3, and it's just, I have people who said, you're a successful business person. Why in the world would you want to do this? And when I had this conversation with somebody, they're like, it's typically not very smart people that wind up running for office because they can't do anything else except run for office. And my argument to them was, look, if we don't have smart business-minded people that are willing to put themselves out there, that are willing to run for office, what are we left with?
Right.
We're left with frustration, shaking our heads, the shake your head emoji or whatever, and not being able to make the kind of impact that we really think needs to be made in this community. And I think that by and large, there is a lot of challenging times ahead of us, but there's also a lot of opportunity associated with how we handle these challenging times. So anyway, I want to see this community survive and prosper, and hopefully my kids that are I have a son who's in college that started, and I have a daughter who's a sophomore in high school that they want to come back to San Antonio because it's going to be a great place to be able to find a job.
Right, I agree. I like what you said a while ago. Is you said you prepared your staff to be leaders. That is one of the best attributes a leader can have, right? And that's what you are. As a leader, you want to create leaders.
Right.
You don't want to suppress people and hold their talents down. You want to lift them up.
Exactly.
And that's what you said right there. Resonated with me is you are a true leader, because to be able to lift people up and encourage them and motivate them and prepare them to be leaders, that allows you to step back, like as you mentioned, and let those leaders take that position you prepared them for.
Right.
So
now, sometimes they're a little reticent to do that because they don't think they're prepared. But I've also always been a preacher about don't let fear hold you back.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, there may be some reticence, a little bit of fear in stepping up, but you never know what you can accomplish. When you let go of the fear and you step up, and the confidence builder and the boost that you get associated with that. So I'm a big about, and even if there's failure associated with a little bit of that, I've also been a big proponent of allowing your employees to fail forward, because there's so many lessons that you learn from that, and that they're even better leaders as a result of what you've been able to do.
I've always talked about that because you learn from mistakes, you learn from your trials, your tribulations, your storms, the fire, whatever you want to call it. You learn so much more, and the important thing is to learn from it.
Yes.
And to improve your life and improve your job and yourself at the job, or whatever it is that you're doing that you claim to be failing in, or you're in the fire on.
Right.
You learn from it. It makes you bigger and stronger.
Yeah. Well, one of the things we talk about on the campaign trail, and we continue to talk about, although it hasn't been as big a priority, because certainly the downturn in the economy and people losing their job, I mean, we will be laser focused on creating jobs for people, jumpstarting this economy, and I've got some ideas in place regarding shovel-ready infrastructure projects that will put people to work right now. That doesn't mean we've got to take our focus off of the jail, and I think you know this well too. There was another suicide today in the jail, and so we continue to have problems with jail administration.
And that was another one of the questions that came in. Is that one person mentioned that they actually specifically mentioned that there was a suicide today at the jail, and then the escapes that have occurred.
You don't even need to get out of jail free card. You just walk out of jail.
The budget issues. One person said they read where the sheriffs and the current administration has gone back and forth with the commissioners and continue asking. So again, lots of questions about the jail and the sheriff's department, and they kind of to sum it up, they want to know what can you do, or what will you do to try to help them to resolve some of those issues.
Well, I mean, it's an important topic for the court because we manage the purse strings. So to your friend's point, or one of the viewers' questions about funding, and the fact that the sheriff is coming back and seems to have his hand out every time he comes back, because we have a huge problem with overtime. You've got people that are working 3 and 4 shifts. That's not right either, because there are only mistakes that are going to happen when you overwork people, not to mention the fact they're destined to quit because the culture is not good. Right. They don't feel like they're provided for. And so one of the ideas that I've thrown out there, and I say it a lot, is maybe the job of enforcing the law and administrating the jail has become too big for one person. We are not a small community anymore. We are not a small county. When I talk about the size of Precinct 3, that's not even, calculating the other 3. But why don't we think about letting the badge do what the badge does best, and that is enforcing the law, putting criminals away, and getting the bad guys, right? Once upon a time, a long time ago, the administration of the jail used to be in the hands of Commissioner's Court. So maybe it's time we take a look at what would that mean. I mean, I guarantee you, with the business experience that I've got, as well as a couple of others on the court too, that we would be able to manage that jail in a much more efficient manner. Hire professional jail administrators, and the other thing is, I guarantee you, we would see cost efficiencies associated with that too. So who knows how successful I'll be when I get in there, but something has got to change. And look, as a business professional, I'm also really big on benchmarking. What are other communities doing? I mean, even Travis County right up the road doesn't have near the problem that the Bexar County Jail has regarding escapes. People are just walking out of the jail, the suicides that we have. And, what is, from a modeling standpoint, what are they doing differently that we might be able to learn from, that we might be able to implement? So that'll be a big job for, obviously, hopefully if I get into the seat, we're going to take a really close look at, all of those ideas, regarding professional jail administration, benchmarking, and not just saying, hey, we're going to throw good money after bad.
Right.
Yeah, with the same outcome. Because what is the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again with the same outcome. And it seems to me like this has been kind of a broken record regarding the jail. So,
and that again, I'm going to say it over and over again, speak truth, right? That is what separates you different. So this is the thing. You and I don't look at the symptoms of issues, right? We focus on, we want to look at what's causing it.
Yes.
Because as you mentioned, the insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, because all they're doing when that happens is they're focusing on the symptom. And they keep looking at the symptom and put a Band-Aid and Band-Aid and Band-Aid. Instead of going in and taking that Band-Aid off and saying, what's causing this wound? What's causing this issue? And let's fix the cause, and that will resolve the symptom of it. And so, again, I think that I hope that people listen to this and hear you, because that's what we need. We need that not just in our county, but in our country.
Yeah,
and we plant seeds in our county, and you set the example here locally in Precinct 3 of how things should be done and how a leader should lead. I think that those seeds that you plant will harvest, and people are going to want to know nationally, what the heck are they doing
differently?
Right?
Yeah.
And that's what we want, right? We want everyone to be successful. We want everyone to improve. And so that's the key thing.
Yeah, and I think it feeds into what your wheelhouse is and my wheelhouse, and that is I consider myself to be a strategist at heart, meaning we're going to look globally at big picture. Okay, the tactical execution is in part the easy part of the equation. So if you're developing a strategy and then you can put tactics that line up underneath that to be able to execute, then you're probably, to your point, looking at outcomes, versus, like I said, throwing a tactic at a problem, and like I said, nothing changes. That's because you don't have an overarching strategy that you really feel good about. Right. Because typically, if you've got a great strategy, everything else falls in line.
Right. And just what you mentioned a while ago is commissioners taking over that responsibility, not to instill fear in anyone who's listening. That doesn't mean you privatize.
No, it doesn't.
I've seen counties actually take the jail administrator, which is law enforcement, and they actually report to the commissioner. So you're not privatizing the jail. You're just shifting the responsibility of the jail over to the commissioner's court. How much time do we have left? 3 more questions.
About 5 minutes.
About 5 minutes.
Okay.
So there is one other question that I wanted to get to that I guess I was getting inundated with questions. So
that's a good thing.
I know.
I like questions.
But you notice a lot of them had to do with public safety.
Right.
But since we have 5 minutes, you probably have time to answer another question. So
Absolutely.
I'm gonna look for another question here. They asked me. One of them said transportation. How do you feel about? They live up here in Precinct 3.
Yes.
So they're a little frustrated with the traffic. Mm-hmm. So they're asking you, what do you feel about the transportation up here in Precinct 3?
It's a high growth area for sure, and it will only continue to be. And so we have not done probably a good enough job, especially with the major apartment complexes that have been built on top of each other. That's only increased the congestion. So the court has a lot of purview over transportation and infrastructure. And so I will be taking a close look at those pain points. And what does that look like? If we look at really, Wurzbach and Northwest Military, we have 40,000 cars that go through that intersection per day. We have to prioritize these projects. Blanco Road, north of 1604. It's an interjurisdictional kind of a quagmire right now because some of it is the county's purview, some is the city, some of it is TxDOT. But it comes down to bringing all of those people together to sit down from a priority standpoint and leveraging dollars associated with that. Boulevardy Road and 1604, another pain point for people. What are we going to do out there? And then 281, obviously we've seen some headway, but yeah, the county acts as like a funnel. You get federal dollars, you get state dollars, you get local dollars, and it comes down and funnel through the county, but it's all about prioritizing projects, and I'm gonna let you know. I live in the precinct, I've grown up in the precinct, so I see the transportation headaches, and so we will be having conversations in the neighborhoods on a regular basis. I will be a commissioner that you will see at homeowners association meetings. I'm not gonna be in the ivory tower. We're gonna have accessibility, we're gonna have a field office right off of Nakoma so that people can walk in there and not have to drive all the way downtown and park. And we're also going to have an education process regarding the importance of county government, because the one thing we haven't talked about that I know is important to the folks in Precinct 3 is property taxes, property taxes, property taxes. When I'm at the doorstep, it's a big, big deal. And so we're going to dig in. we're going to look at appraisal reform and what does that look like? Because there have been a lot of people that have talked the talk, but they haven't walked the walk when it comes to appraisal reform. So I'm all about the board of directors at the Bear Appraisal District being elected and not appointed and having better representation for the taxpayer. And we got to go to Austin to get that done. But, you know, I think I have somebody who aligns with me who hopefully will get back into that seat, and Steve Allison, who's looked at appraisal reform too. So at least, you know, we have a friend up there that's willing to be able to carry the water and help tackle that issue. But all of those things, like I said, I have so enjoyed. I hope some of you maybe have seen me on your doorstep. I know you and block walking, but it's so important to have these conversations with the constituents because you hear a lot. I think people have been very surprised to see the candidate at the door. They're like, "Whoa, that's you." Yes, and I'm like, "Yeah, it is me."
That's great.
And I want your vote.
That's right.
Exactly.
And that's what's so critical, as you mentioned, all your offices you're going to have out in the community. You want to be out with your constituents more often than you are behind your desk. It's very, very critical, right? Because I think a lot of politicians forget their job. And their job is to listen to their constituents, not what they want to do or not what's on their agenda, but what they need for their community. And you get that. And that's why you're out there and I see you all the time. And I know your staff is tired, but you guys are out there beating doors down. All day, every day.
Well, and I think it's important that we never forget that every dollar that's spent is the taxpayer's dollar. And so we've got to be looking at key performance indexes associated with projects. What are the KPIs associated with that? So that we determine what success looks like. What is the ROI associated with that spend? What is the return on investment? Because there again, I think we've had a lot of freewheeling spending that's been going on, and we've got to rein that in, especially now, and prioritize and look for where the ROI is and what's important to the constituents of Precinct 3.
Absolutely.
So, yes.
Well, our time is up. I really hope y'all enjoyed it. I know I did. It went really fast. I know there's a lot of questions. I'm still getting questions. If you have questions, please private message me.
We'll do this again.
We'll do it again. And also, if you want Trish and myself to go out to your HOA, send me a message. Send it to Trish's. I'll let her tell the website here a little bit. Send us a message, and Trish will get out there. I'll get out there. We'll be out there together. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you noticed, if you watch this again, everything that a commissioner should know, Trish knows. Whether it's public safety, economic development, business, small business, large business, she knows it all. And this is what we need in office today to help our county. And also, it takes money. I know, Trish, it's hard to ask. It's very difficult for me to ask. So if you like what you heard today, it takes money to get the right people in office. So please donate.
It doesn't have to be a big amount.
It doesn't. Yes. 5, 10, 15, 20, 1,000. Anything helps. So please take the time to give Trish a little support here financially.
Yeah. TrishForCommission.com.
There
Thank you, Willie.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye-bye.